Thank you so much for coming today, Jason. It's an honor and a privilege to have you in my home. I met Jason Hernandez about four months ago. He reached out to me through my Facebook and shared such a heart-wrenching story with me that I found myself just weeping and weeping on just reading what you have been through. And I was like, wow. And then you're just like, I don't know if you will respond, and if you don't talk to me, I understand. But today, I am just honored to have you here, and I want you to share your testimony with everyone. And so if you don't mind, would you please share what's on your heart?
Well, and again, like you said, it's an honor to be here as well, Miss Vicky. Okay. And I reached out to you on Messenger, on Instagram. I didn't know how to contact you, but I know what you're going through to an extent, and I didn't know if you were going to respond back. I thought that maybe you might have some type of animosity against me for the behavior, the things that I did when I was younger, and but you did, and it just speaks volumes of the person that you are. And I think that also, what I wanted to kind of stress to you at that time was that sometimes what feels like the end can sometimes be the beginning, right? And you have to give your pain a purpose. Mm-hmm. And I believe that I could do that. I had saw that you were doing that, and I just wanted to kind of contribute to that. And as well, I mean, your son passed away during a drug deal. I was a drug dealer, unfortunately, but that wasn't always the case. Mm-hmm. I grew up in McKinney, Texas, considered one of the greatest cities to raise a family.
Yes.
But with all that going on, I was 5, 6, 7 years old. My dreams, my goals weren't to become a drug dealer or to go to prison. That's not what I thought about at that time. Just like everybody else, I wanted to be in sports. I wanted to fly to the moon, just like every other kid does. But just growing up and being picked on, being bullied by the other kids, grew up, there is a low-income area of McKinney called the East Side, which is predominantly populated by Hispanics and African Americans, and we didn't have much over there. We played in the trees and abandoned houses, and me being, I was always considered a mama's boy. Never got in any trouble. AB honor roll student. If you can see, I have freckles, right? Yes. And I used to get picked on for that. I was never considered Mexican enough. And didn't speak Spanish. So the other kids, I always wanted to fit in. And I think that, I don't care if you're 5 years old or you're 50 years old, you want to be a part of something. You want to belong to something. Something
bigger than yourself.
Yeah, yes. Of course. And yes. Sometimes you will do things that are not right in order to be accepted, to be a part of somebody. And growing up, I was always told that, you're going to be somebody, Jason. You're going to be the one that's going to make it out of here. But nobody ever told me what I could become, right? They just gave me, you're going to be somebody, and never followed up with that. There wasn't no mentors in my neighborhood, so to speak. And there wasn't much to go on. There wasn't any doctors, lawyers, businessmen where I grew up at. There was gang members and there was drug dealers. They were the ones that
Those were your options.
Those were my options, and then over time, as I grew up, I started looking up to them. I started idolizing them, so to speak. When I turned on the TV, Scarface, New Jack City, these were people that were being glamorized. They weren't looked at as villains. They were looked at as the hero of the neighborhood. And getting older, I knew I wasn't going to be on a football team. I just wasn't built for it, right? I wasn't physically gifted. I knew I wasn't going to be, I was on the AB honor roll, but I wasn't going to be in the high society club, right? I knew I wasn't going to make it to that academic level. But I wanted attention. I wanted people to think about me and to be valued, to be considered. And the other kids that I saw that were getting that attention were the kids that were acting up. I think what we have in our society and in our schools right now is that these kids that are physically gifted and mentally gifted, that parents, counselors, schools pay a lot of attention to them, which they should. And then the next group of kids that get attention are the ones that are acting up. And yes, that's what I knew I wasn't going to be in that upper echelon, but I could do with those other kids. So I would skip school, get caught purposely. I would talk back just so I could get labeled I wanted that label of a bad kid.
Right.
Because once I started getting that label, then the other kids would see, you know what, he's one of us now. And that's exactly what happened. And when I started, there was a small gang that started in my neighborhood when I was in 8th grade. 8th grade and 7th grade are just such a transitional part of our life. Like, you're trying to figure out where you are, who you are, and where you fit in at. And I didn't feel right hanging out with the gang members in my school and dressing like them and talking like them. And even though I didn't feel right, I still did it because, again, I was part of this family. I was belonging.
You were fitting in.
Yeah.
With this, like, I'm somebody now.
Yeah, I'm somebody now. And I was being paid attention to. The teachers started focusing on me. They started sending me to these little programs to where, they'd have these guys do these Scared Straight programs with us. And once I got that, and once I had that respect, I didn't want to lose it. I was like, what can I have to act up more.
Right, to feed this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit. And I was the first person of that little small clique, that gang, out of 25 gang members. On the totem pole of the 25 gang members, I was probably number 25, right? And when I got arrested and went to juvenile, and when I came back, I immediately went from like 25 up to like one of the leaders. I was like second almost in command of this gang. And my friends who were picking on me and were bullying me started looking up to me, and it felt so good. At that time, 1988, 89, drugs and gangs.
How old were you then?
I was 14 years old.
Okay.
Drugs and gangs just started taking over, I would say all over the United States, right? It just out of nowhere. They came through the community. And my mother and father were good people, never been incarcerated, taught us, how to sit at a table, how to talk, be respectable. We went to church every Sunday. But I didn't want to be like, my father was he was a landscaper all his life. My mother cleaned toilets. She still cleans toilets to this day. And I didn't want that for myself. And I thought the only way that I could get out of that neighborhood was sell drugs. And my older brother, JJ, he was a drug dealer. And I would ride around with him sometime, and everybody looked up. We'd ride through the neighborhood, and everybody would just stop what they were doing and waving at. He sold marijuana. I looked up to JJ. I love JJ like he was my father. We used to he used to break dance. I would break dance with him, skateboard, boxing. I did everything he did. And he started selling drugs, and he started using drugs as well. And I wanted to do that. So I got involved. JJ became, he was an addict.
Did your parents know that you were doing this at the time?
They didn't know.
Okay.
They thought that people would call them and say, Jason's out here selling drugs on the street corner. And they were like, nah, not Jason. Maybe JJ, but they thought maybe JJ, but not Jason. Jason wouldn't do that.
Right.
He's the perfect kid. And
Got great grades.
Great grades, talks, he, yes ma'am, no ma'am, sits proper in his chair like I am right now.
Right.
So they just never thought. They used to tell me, my mom would say, son, you're gonna buy that house for me one of these days, right? I'm like, yes. I'm like, yeah, mom, I'm gonna buy that house. You're not gonna have to clean toilets anymore. And when I saw drugs was that outlet, I was like, this is how I'm gonna buy that house. This is what's gonna stop my mother from cleaning toilets. She's not gonna have to clean toilets anymore. JJ he ended up going to prison for 2 years for selling marijuana. And at that time, at the 16 years old, I was in position to kind of take over his organization. I had learned everything through the drug game through him. And unfortunately, I was always good at math. And unfortunately, I became pretty good at selling drugs. I hate to admit that, but I did. And I sold drugs all the way from when I was 15 up until I was 21 years old.
How much money were you bringing in that the addiction just kept like driving you? Like,
I would say at the age of 17, I was making more money than my father was. I was making more money in a week than my father would make in a month.
did he have any idea that you were?
They had no idea.
What'd you do with your money?
I just saved it because I couldn't spend it.
Okay.
And when they found out that I was selling, because they found marijuana, they found like 7-8 pounds at the house. JJ wasn't around to say that, hey, I left that there,
You
that's
didn't
mine.
like hide it?
Well, I did hide it, but they found it. I think they were kind of already onto me.
Sure,
They
I'm sure.
I had this big old speaker box, and I think they went in there, unscrewed it, and found it. And they gave me an option: either you stop selling or you leave. And I didn't think twice about it. They went to go clean a building. By the time they came back, I was gone. I was addicted to selling drugs. To have that power at such a young
Yes,
age, to have
yes.
money, it was transformative to me. And to have people look up to me that were
You felt famous.
Famous
in that world.
Yeah,
yes.
I was famous, and girls didn't like me. Now girls like me, right? And I was just like, I got to sell more drugs. I can't stop. I honestly felt like I was born to do this. 'Cause it felt so natural.
Right.
And people in the community were looking up to me. They weren't, other than my mother and father, nobody was telling me what I was doing was bad. They looked at me like I was doing something good for the neighborhood. But as they say, the same thing that'll make you laugh will make you cry. And in March 16th, 1998, the federal government indicted me and arrested me for conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. They arrested me and 40 other individuals in McKinney, Texas. Conspiracy to distribute crack cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamines. And, at that time, you're just thinking, knew this was going to happen. What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
5 to 10 years.
Right.
I'm thinking about a plea bargain.
Well, maybe a bond. I mean,
A bond,
I don't know.
yeah. But this is the federal government.
Yes.
And it wasn't a state case. So, in the feds, they have what are called mandatory minimums, where you can get 5, 10 years, even life without parole. First time nonviolent drug offender. They can deny you bond. All this stuff I didn't know about, but I'm thinking that I'm going to get out. And when my lawyer sees me and tells me, Jason, you're looking at life without parole. I told her that, get out of here. You're lying to me. And
Your whole life.
yeah.
Oh my God.
And at that time I was 21 years old. My son, when I got arrested, my son was 6 months when I got arrested, March 16th, 1998. And of course, the majority of the people that they arrested were my friends and family members that were selling drugs as well. And you think that, you hear about the mafia and these crime syndicates and this code of honor, you take the fall. And naively, that's what I thought, right? That these
If I work with them, they'll give me a break or.
Well, I thought my friends and family members weren't gonna testify against me, weren't gonna implicate me, that they would take responsibility. Hey, you know what? We were all in this together.
Yes.
We all knew what we were doing. We were selling drugs. We weren't selling Girl Scout cookies. We knew what came with this.
Right.
So I thought that they would keep quiet and wouldn't say nothing. We were all gonna go to jail, but it was just a matter of how much time. And I ultimately had nearly 20 people testify against me in a courtroom. Some of them were my family members, some of them were my best friends from childhood, and some of them were just people that I sold drugs to. And some of them even, there's a lot of the stuff they said I did, and a lot of them even made stuff up, because the more you told, the more time went down. And I was ultimately found guilty of nearly 12 counts that involved drug distribution. And again, my crime, and not to say that it made it all right, because it didn't, because drugs, I was just polluting, destroying my community. I didn't see it at that time. But, my crime did not involve gangs, guns, overdoses, deaths, links to cartels. And again, that doesn't make it right what I did. But even with that being said, at sentencing, the judge sentenced me to life without parole, 20, 20, 20, 20, 40, 40, 40, 40, and an 80-year sentence. So I was sentenced to life without parole plus 320 years. And even the judge told me that, Jason, I've thought about you like all night. I don't want to give you life without parole. You're such a young kid, but I have to. I have no discretion. Congress has implemented these mandatory minimum sentences. My hands are tied. I have to sentence you to life without parole. And it just,
Like this is not real.
That's exactly what I thought. It's not real, right? I knew it was real to an extent, but I was like, come on, I'm gonna die in prison for, I did bad and I deserve to be punished, but I don't think I deserve my life to be taken for that. And just going through, I remember a couple months later, they have preachers come in and run sermons with us. And I'm there, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? I'm thinking like, wow, this is serious. Like I could actually probably die in prison. And I'm there, I got my eyes closed, and the preacher's like, pick your hands up, close your eyes, I'm gonna pray. And I remember that time I told the Lord, I don't know if I can make this. Like, they're about to send me to a prison. And I said, Lord, I need a sign, like right now. Like not later on tonight or not tomorrow, like right now, because this is, I'm sentenced to practically to the death penalty, right?
Yes, yes.
And you know, I got my eyes closed and my hands up, and the next thing you know, the person that's preaching, for some reason, he's like singled me out, and he put his hand on me and almost like dropped me, and he just started praying over me. He said, "I know you're going through some bad things right now, but just don't give up faith, don't give up hope, and you'll overcome it." And you know, that right there boosted my faith up and my spirits up. But I'll be honest. You know, when I went to prison, the prisons are not designed to rehabilitate you, right?
No.
They kind of when you go there, they kind of make you worse than when you went in there. It just depends on, because there's just so much negativity going on in there. And I ended up going to what was considered a maximum security federal penitentiary, which housed some of the worst prisoners in the United States, if not the world. And you know, at that place, first time that I ever seen heroin or seen a man overdose was in that prison. First time I ever seen somebody killed was in that prison.
And at the time, you're
21.
When you went to prison, you
Yeah,
were
when I went to
21?
the prison,
Okay,
I was 21. I was the youngest person in that prison at that time.
Wow.
And I don't know what I was thinking. I was in there, started selling weed again. There's just as many drugs as there is in prison as there is out here. And
Yes.
I didn't have money.
How did you get it?
A lot of the drugs that go
Yes.
on in there are brought in through the guards. The guards make a relationship with the prisoner in there, and then they bring it in and they buy it off them. And there was pounds of marijuana and there was ounces of heroin in there. And I started selling again. I just thought that it was normal. I thought that, you know what, I'm Mexican. My mindset was that we go to prison, we sell drugs, we use drugs. It's just who we are. That's what I thought.
Yes.
So you know, I'm doing that. I'm kind of not adapting to that life, but I am in a way. I'm not noticing that I am, but I am. I'm hanging out with a group of friends, and I had been in at that time. 2002, I was starting about my 6th year already. When I got arrested, my brother got arrested too, JJ, and my other brother Stevie. JJ was doing a 30-year sentence, and TDC.
So all three of your parents' children were in prison.
Yes, even my younger brother when he got older. So imagine that, Vicky. My mother, four
sorry.
kids
No, I can't.
go to prison for drugs.
And you came from a Christian home.
Christian home. God-fearing Christian, respectable. You do not cuss. You do not talk back. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. At that, it was. I mean, it wasn't strict. It wasn't like super strict. But
Yes.
this was in the '80s when you acted up, you could get disciplined. Right.
Right,
Getting
exactly.
hit with the belt, and we were respectable kids. Everybody. I mean, we weren't the bad kids that you would think that you come from a broken home.
Exactly.
Father's not around.
Exactly.
Mother's
Well,
not around.
you don't write this, and you know
Yeah.
your parents believing that they trained you up in the way that you were supposed to go, and you did not.
Didn't. Yeah.
And we all have choices.
Yeah, we all make choices. And one of the things with, my son, the first time that I ever heard him talk was over the phone. First time I ever seen my son walk was through a 3-inch plexiglass. Mother and father driving 6, 7, 8 hours to come visit me. Once they visit me on a Friday, they go visit my brother in another prison on a Saturday, drive to another part of Texas and visit my other brother on a Sunday. That's what their weekends look like. And it would break them down. And that's something that we don't realize, that when we make decisions, right, that they don't affect only you, they affect everybody. My decisions affected my mother, my father, my son, who's still affected by the decisions that I made today. And so in 2002, I think I was about 6 months into my prison term. And along with me as well, as I mentioned, JJ, my older brother, was doing tenure. He received a 10-year sentence. No, Stevie was serving a 10-year sentence, and JJ was serving a 30-year sentence. And we had our appeals in, and we thought eventually that we would probably, get resentenced or a retrial. And they're calling me on the intercom. They're like, Jason Hernandez, report to the lieutenant's office. And I'm thinking that, this is it. Like,
Right.
they're
This
looking for me to tell me
yes.
that I got my time reduced. So we have phones in there, and I go down. I'm like, I'm gonna call my father. Right, I'm gonna call my father and let him know, hey, you know what? I'm thinking they're looking for me at the lieutenant's office to tell me that get ready to go back to resentencing. And so I go down there. I pick up the phone. I call my dad, and I'm like, he answers, but he doesn't. I'm like, Dad, is that you? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what's going on? And he don't say nothing. Which every time when I called home, they'd be like, hey, how you doing, son? They'd be so happy to hear my voice.
Right.
And he didn't say nothing. Then just out of nowhere, he just says, they killed him, son. They killed him. And I said,
Oh, God.
They killed who? What are you talking about? And he said, JJ, this morning, they killed him. And I was like, nah, Dad. I said, you're lying. I said, they didn't kill JJ. I said, JJ's alive. Go down to that prison. He's there. Trust me, he's alive. He's like, no, son, the preacher and the warden called me this morning and told me that he was stabbed to death by 3 other prisoners.
Oh, jeez.
And you know, right there and then I kind of just lose it, right? I mean, I'm at my lowest. Here I am serving life without parole, 320 years, thinking that I'm about to tell my dad, or my dad's about to tell me, because my dad is bawling like a baby, right? He's crying like a child. I've never heard my dad cry or show any type of emotion. And, you know, and I don't know, you know, I don't know where to go from there, right? Thinking about taking my life. I don't
And
know
you don't
what
have anybody in prison to console you where you're at.
There's nobody to console me, and it's prison. And, you know, boys don't cry, especially in prison,
Right.
And not being able to allow that outlet.
You didn't even grieve?
I did, but it's not like, it's like you're holding it inside. You're preventing
gosh.
yourself from
Yes.
and,
Going there.
Yeah, and you know you can't cry. You just can't cry in prison. It's a sign of weakness in there, even death. And you know, I immediately, as soon as I get a chance, I call my son. At that time, I think he's around 5 years old. He's about 5 years old. And he doesn't know he's with his grandmother, and they don't know what's going on. And he gets on the phone and he says, and again, I'm asking the Lord, I need a sign, right? Like I can't do this no more. Like this is it. Like this is the last straw. And my son says, JJ. And I said, yes, son, JJ. He goes, he's in heaven. And I said, yeah, he's in heaven. He's in heaven, son. JJ's in heaven. And he goes, JJ's in heaven. And it didn't dawn on me. And I was like, hold up. I said, put your grandmother on the phone. He put his grandmother on the phone, and I said, I thought y'all didn't know nothing about JJ passing. I thought my son didn't know anything about it. She goes, he don't. He does. You were the first person that told me, and she's speaking in Spanish, so my son can't understand her. And she goes like, I don't know what made him just say that right now. She goes, I know this morning around 4 o'clock, which was around the time my brother was murdered, that she goes, he just got up out of bed and just started screaming and started crying, and we didn't know what was going on with him.
Wow.
And all of a sudden he just stopped crying and went back to sleep. And you know what that told me was that before he left this earth, that he visited my son and told my son that, you know what, just let Jason and everybody know that I'm all right, that I'm in heaven now.
He came through.
Yeah, he came through.
5-year-old boy.
Right?
Isn't
Imagine
that like God? Wow.
Right, imagine that. But even with that, you know, we went on a lockdown at the prison that I was at. Some stuff happened there. Some inmates got stabbed, and we go on what's called a 24-hour lockdown. And there, I'm contemplating, thinking about, I'm losing it, right? I'm saving pills. I'm thinking I'm going to take my life. Right? I can't do this no more. I don't want to do it no more. Even though I had that great sign from my son that my brother was in heaven, I just can't deal with it.
There's nothing to give you hope.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's 8x6 prison cell. I've been in there for like 7 days. I haven't ate nothing. And what I had set my sights to, that was when they buried my brother, I was gonna kill myself that day. And I'm laying in my bed, and I have all these pills, and I'm laying there, and it's the weirdest thing. Those teachers, some of the officers, they used to tell me, Jason, what are you doing? You're better than this. You're smarter than this. That if you just apply yourself positively, you can have a positive impact on the community and not a negative one. And I remember, imagine that, right?
Wow.
Those seeds that they planted in 1992, 93 were growing in some of the harshest environment that you could possibly think of, in this 8x6 prison cell right before I'm about to kill myself.
Right.
And I get up and I get out of my bed and I'm looking at this mirror. It's like a makeshift mirror made out of foil paper. And I'm looking at the mirror and I say, you know what? I said, like, you know what? Today's the day, starting right now. You're going to change your life. You're going to do everything possible to better yourself. That every life that you come in contact with, that you're going to either try to better, change it, or you're going to save it. That through the loss of your brother's life, you're going to get your life back. And in the process, you're going to change not one or two and not hundreds of lives, but thousands of lives. And, you know, it was just this declaration that I made to myself and to the Lord that if I stay in prison, that if I die in prison, it's going to be because of me. If I get out, it's going to be because of me. But I knew with that declaration, with that commitment, that I had to make another powerful decision, that I had to separate myself from all my friends in there. If you want to change your life, you have to change your friends. And I had told myself, you know what, I'm going to be by myself from this day forward. And with that, as soon as they opened up them doors, because we were on lockdown, I went to all the gang members in there, and I went to all my friends that I was hanging out with in there, and I told them, you know what, I'm by myself. That if I get in any trouble, it's on me. And I told the gang members that if my group of friends, something happens with them, then I'm no longer associated with them anymore. And because my brother was murdered, right. They gave me a pass. There wasn't any type of repercussions for me pulling back. But they had also let me know that, Jason, you know that if something happens, that if somebody goes into your cell or somebody does something to you or wants something from you, that you're by yourself. That right. You don't have our support. Yeah, you're by. Yes. I mean, you're like a lamb here. Like,
well, it's just you and God.
Yeah, just me and God, right? And that's what I told myself. I said, you know what? If I die in here, I'm gonna die for something I believe in, right? That's my
Amen.
Brother's name.
Amen.
And that day forward, I just had this obsession of just getting out of prison, right? And not only getting out of prison, but again, when I get out, what can I do to not come back? And what can I do to have a positive impact on the community? And I would just sit there and I'd walk around the track, I'd be in my bed, and I would visualize myself being out here in the free world, going to the jails that I was in, going to the schools that I was in, going back to my neighborhood, and doing everything that I possibly could so kids didn't have to go through what I went through to learn right from wrong, that kids didn't have to go to prison or be murdered for making bad decisions, and that mothers didn't have to experience what my mother went through, Ms. Vicki. I mean, again, 3 kids, 3 boys, her 3 oldest boys, and my younger brother would soon follow. 4 of us went to prison for selling drugs.
There's just no words. I can't even imagine the heart-wrenching pain that they have both been through.
Yeah, and on top of that, 1 sentenced to life without parole.
And you're alive.
And 1 murdered in there.
Yes,
yes. 1 murdered in there. So imagine what we put our mother through. And again, and I would pray to God and I say, God, maybe I don't deserve a second chance, but my mother and father, they deserve us to be out there with them. And maybe I don't, but just if you do it, Lord, do it for them.
Right. Just don't take my life without me completing something positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go down this way.
Yeah.
Really, you have God's got a plan and a purpose for you.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then, it wasn't easy. I mean, every day was a struggle, right? And days that I wanted to give up, pray to the Lord, and then I would, why do you fight? What gets you out of bed every day, right? You have to have that. And to me, it was my brother. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get out. He did not die for no reason, right? His life is going to give life to thousands of people, and I'm that vessel. So, I started to educate myself. I started to read, take paralegal courses. I became what was known as a jailhouse attorney in there. I did my own legal work. I started doing legal work for other prisoners that were incarcerated, and filed everything you possibly could, but ultimately nothing worked for me. And I was at that penitentiary, that prison that I did ultimately 10 years there. In 2008, they moved me I was in Beaumont, Texas, and they moved me to El Reno, Oklahoma, which was a lower security prison. And at this prison, it's the weirdest thing because, we take things for granted in life. So picture Beaumont, nothing but concrete, iron, fences. There's just no life there, right? Mm-hmm. Beaumont was El Reno was like a college campus, so to speak. They had trees, they had bushes. So imagine that. Life. Yes. Trees and bushes, and they had grass. When I got there, I took off my shoes and I walked through the grass, and people were looking at me like I was crazy, right? And they had rabbits. So these little things that are taken from you, I mean, they're so important that you just take for granted every day. And
Very
while
much so.
I was there, they had more classes that I took, and there was absolutely nothing. There was no way that I could get out of prison. Again, I was life without parole, 320 years. The only way that I could get out was through the President of the United States, which at that time was President Barack Obama. He was just elected at that time in 2008, exactly, right there in 2008. And I had read a book about him called The Audacity of Hope. And I said that if anybody understands kind of like that we're not bad kids, we're just kids who make bad decisions,
Yes.
and that we shouldn't die in prison for them, I said maybe this is the man who understands that. So what I did, I put a letter together, and I put that letter together like my life depended on it.
Yes.
Because it did.
It was your mercy plea.
And I told him, I said, President Obama, kind of like, because I said, you have no idea who I am and probably wonder why in God's earth am I writing to you. But I'm writing you to tell you that I sold drugs and that I'm extremely, extremely sorry for that. And I deserve to be in prison and I deserve to be punished. But I don't think that I deserve my life to be taken. And that I have these dreams and I have these goals of going back to my community and making a change. Again, preventing those kids from having to go to prison, or preventing the mothers to have to suffer from what my mother and my father suffered from. Kids being raised without a father, like my son was. And I sent that letter to him September 19th, 2011. Couple years passed by, never heard nothing. And one day, December 19th, 2013, I'm coming out. I just finished eating, and I came out through back onto the yard, and they're calling my name through the intercom, just like they called for me when my brother was murdered. So immediately, my thoughts were, somebody in my family died. It was right before Christmas, and my parents were supposed to come visit me.
That's interesting.
And I'm thinking they're looking for me to tell me that my mother or father or my son has passed away. And I got these cold chills, just like you did right now.
Well, it's just opposite. The time before, you were thinking, I was going to hear some good news, and you heard the worst news.
Yeah.
And this time, where you've got yourself built up with all this faith, you're like, oh no,
Yeah,
right?
like this is it. And
yes.
I'm telling the Lord, like, Lord, I can't take no more. Like this will be the straw that breaks me. I don't know if I have the faith strong enough. So they call me, they put me in the captain's complex, and I'm sitting there, and everybody, all the there's guards there, there's counselors there, and they're telling me, what gang are you in? And I'm like, I'm not in a gang, sir. Well, why are you here? You done something wrong. They wouldn't have called us here. And they look like they want to kind of like tackle me already too, because they don't know what's going on.
Yes.
They're probably used to hearing bad things that happen at the prison. So I'm sitting there, and then the warden walks in, and the warden is like the president of that little area, right? Everybody, I mean, whatever he says goes. So he walks in, he stands up right before me, and he has his paper in his hand, and he's just looking at me, and he goes, "Are you Jason Hernandez?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he goes, "Well, I have an executive order from President of the United States, Barack Obama, commuting your sentence of life without parole to 20 years. You're no longer going to die in prison." And of course, what's the first thing that I say is, "You're lying to me, right?" And then he turns around this paper with this I see the golden seal, and I see President Barack Obama's signature on it. And right there and then, obviously, I just put my head down, and I'm crying, and I'm thinking it's over. But then I still don't believe it. I get up and I say,
Jason.
and I say, "How do you know that this is,
Yes.
they're not playing a hoax on you? How do you know that paper is real?" So he tells the secretary, "Look his name up." She gets on her computer, and then she turns it around on the screen, and she says, "Mr. Hernandez, you now have a release date." And, but it wasn't, I cried and I felt good, but it wasn't like what you would think, right? Because everybody always asks you something that they ask people doing life without parole in prison. What are you going to do when you get that life sentence off you? And you always say, "I'm going to be doing backflips. I'm going to be singing." Like, don't worry about what I say. You're going to know. And it wasn't like that. It was like, wow, I lost, ultimately, I would lose 17 and a half years of my life in prison. My brother, I got my life back, but my brother wasn't going to come back. My son, who was 6 months when I went in, would be nearly 19 years old when I got out. And not only that, the other prisoners. I had to go back and tell the other prisoners that, wow, I get to go home and y'all don't. There's dozens of people serving life without parole sentences there. And I was released August the 11th, 2015. The first thing that I did was go see my brother's grave. It was always, I said, I'm going to get out, first thing I'm going to do is visit his grave, and that's exactly what I did. One of my childhood friends, who ended up becoming an officer, who was actually the officer that arrested me March 16th, 1998, who took me to the prison, was the first person that I seen on my release date. I wrote him a letter from prison and said, I want to meet with you. We were friends growing up. I know what I did, I was wrong what I did, and I'm sorry for that, but I want to go back and I want to give back to the community. So we met at a Starbucks. First time I ever been to Starbucks. I had a coffee with ice in it, which was like, blew my mind away. Like, coffee with ice? Like,
yes.
That wasn't something that they did in the 1990s. So I met him, and then now me and him, we have a Christmas program that we do for kids. We locate 100 kids every year that have a father that's incarcerated or that's been deported. Here recently, the mayor of McKinney and the mayor of Anna, Nate Pike and George Fuller, they have helped me. They were giving me money so I could quit my job and be more involved in our criminal justice system, work more with our kids. When I got out, I worked 2 jobs. When I was incarcerated, I learned culinary arts and I learned how to weld. Those were 2 of the jobs that I attained when I first got out. I was working, and it was hard at first. Nobody wanted to give me a chance.
Right.
Nobody wanted to give me a chance. Nobody wanted to give me a job. It was another one of those moments that was breaking my spirit.
Really?
But, again, I didn't give up. My first job was working at a restaurant, washing dishes. $10 an hour, 12 in the afternoon till 12 at night. But you're just happy to be free, just happy to be out and be with my mother and my father. And one of the things that I always tell kids and students that growing up, because I'm Mexican, right? Yes. We eat a lot of beans, tortillas. Growing up, dinner. You know how they say Taco Tuesday?
Yes.
At my house, it was tacos every day. Morning, lunch,
yes.
dinner, and at night, they put cinnamon on the tortillas and sugar. That's the dessert. But so before we eat the beans, when I was a kid, I had to clean the beans up. My mom, they'd come in a sack, and we'd have to clean them. They have dirt in them and rocks.
Right.
I used to hate it.
Yes.
But when I was in prison, I would sit in my bed and I said, there was nothing that I would give more than to just be at that table right now with my mother and father.
Right.
Cleaning those beans and just having a conversation with them about life, about their life, how they met, and what their likes and dislikes are. And it's not about your social status. It's not about when you post something, how many likes you get, how many shares you have. It's about who you are as a person. What are your gifts? What are your talents? And how are you making other people's lives better in the process of that? I know it's cliche, and everybody always says that if I can just change one life, that it's worth it. And I think that's okay. But I like to think that if I'm on my deathbed, and if I change one life or even 2 lives, I feel that I have failed. That there's no doubt in my mind that if I put the same passion and determination that I used to get that life sentence, and the same passion and determination that I used to take that life sentence off me, that I should change thousands and thousands and thousands of Paul's lives. And I think that everybody should think like that. And, they say that the 2 most important days of anybody's life are the day that you were born and the day you find out why you were born. I believe I have found out why I was born, Vicki.
That's good.
And that is to change better and save lives. And because of my brother's passing, that's what it took for me to be here right now. That's sad to say, but again, sometimes what seems like the end can be the beginning, and it's given that pain purpose. And thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. It was just an honor to have you here. And same thing with me, finding purpose through my pain. And, I can't get my son back, but I can change other people's lives. And I don't want just 1 or 2. If I do change 1 or 2, great. But I want millions. We can do a lot to build the kingdom, because that's what it's all about. None of this is going to go with us. I always say there's no U-Haul behind a hearse. So in the meantime, let's win some for the kingdom and have some fun along the way.
Yeah. And you're already doing it. And if I can help you in any way, please let me know.
I sure will.
I'd love to.
I love you. Thank you.